to celebrate Will Welch's new poetry book. I'm going to start the night by thanking Andrew, because last time I forgot to thank Andrew, so I want him doubly thanked. He does everything. I am not lying to you when I say, wherever I am, if Andrew's in the room, if Andrew's in the field, if Andrew's anywhere nearby, I just go, okay, everything's right with the world. So thank you, Andrew. If you are not familiar with our organization, the other side is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. This means that none of our staff is paid. Everybody that works voluntarily because we love this space. That said, there's a jug in the back that says donations on it, and since we are community sponsored, if you would like to throw a little money in there before you leave, we'd much appreciate it. Next, housekeeping thing, we have a bathroom. Up the stairs to the left, and then immediately to your left again. Okay, let's talk about Will. When I met Will Welch, he was editing Doubly Mad. He had accepted a story of mine, and I can't remember really the circumstances, but we started reading poetry together, he and Oren Domenico and myself, and I was flabbergasted. He was so young, and he was so good. And I thought, man, when he's my age, he's going to be the poet laureate of America. And I think he's on track for this. He's still incredibly young, and he's gotten better and better and better. If you don't know Will, he edits Doubly Mad magazine. He publishes Doubly Mad books. There was one other thing. Oh, and credits on your book. He has been published in literary magazines, including the Little Pawtuxet Review, Stone Canoe, which is just down the road in Syracuse, Rust and Moth, Cider Press Review, and others. And we are very lucky to hear him today. My friends always say to me, I don't understand poetry. And my students used to say, I don't understand poetry. And I would say to them, you don't have to understand poetry. Poetry affects you even if you don't get a word of it. You just need to appreciate what's being given to you. That said, as I was thinking about this to talk to you today, to introduce you to Will, I remembered a quote from a poet I love, William Carlos Williams of the Red Wheelbarrow fame, if you remember. And he said in a poem I think was called January, the speaker in the poem is answering that question. I didn't get poetry. And he says, I wanted to write a poem that you would understand. For what good is it to me if you can't understand it? But you got to try hard. So I'm going to ask you to try hard to understand. I will tell you that every time I read Will's work, I learn a new word. So, just expect to go out of here with your vocabulary. It's just soaring. But if you can't understand, just sit back and appreciate it. You're going to love this. It's amazing. Will.
Thanks, Ruth. That was very sweet. I don't know if I can ever be poet laureate because I would probably swear too much in public, and that's not professional. But well, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Although other people are swearing in public quite a bit these days, anyway. So, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. This is really exciting for me to be able to read from this book. It's been a long time coming. I guess I'll give you just a little bit of background on it. As Ruth said, I've been writing back and forth with her and Oren Domenico for years, probably more than 10 years at this point. And over time, this whole time I've been saying, I'm going to do a book, and finally in 2020, after I finished nursing school, and it was obviously the pandemic was happening, I said, I need to actually finish this book. And this is the product of that decision. Thank you. So I finished the manuscript. I wrote most of these poems on their own. I didn't really have a book. I knew I was going to do a book, but I didn't have it wasn't plotted out like a novel or something. So in 2023, I had a body of poems ready that I thought these need to be together. And I began shopping it around, and Finishing Line Press decided to publish this. So I'm very appreciative to Finishing Line Press for putting out this book. And I'm just going to launch into it here. I'm going to find, I said to myself, I will mark my poems so I know where to start. And I put these little things, but they're all clustered together. But yes, that's number one. Okay. The first poem I want to read is on page 30, if you have a book and you want to follow along. It is called Apologia, and it starts with a quote from a poem from the great Polish poet Miłosz. The poem is To My Daemonian, and his quote is, "And it seems that while others loved, strove, hated, despaired, I have only been busy with listening." So this is my poem, Apologia. Last summer's foliage still hangs on the beechnut tree, each desiccated, tawny leaf a deaf ear. In the falling snow, there are only two sounds: a dog barking and laughter of a crow. It's possible to go 12 years without talking with someone, yet recognize their voice after hearing as few as 3 words. But no one teaches us how to listen. Our parents never sat us down and said, "Here, this is like sewing. To make a finished garment, you have to pull the thread of my voice through the fabric of your thoughts. Often the needle pricks your thumb. That is why so many people get upset and cut the thread. I confess. Like the crow, I enjoy the sound of my own voice. I'm as repetitive as the dog with his one idea, and go a long time without hearing you, the way the beech leaves go all winter without hearing the wind. But I am learning. Now, if I closed my eyes and you approached, trying to surprise me, I would recognize you even by your silence." Part of the sort of loose theme of this book is that over the past 10 years, I've traveled around a lot. I'm from Mohawk, New York, just down the road. I think most of you know that. But Colleen, my better half, is from Katy, Texas, and she was in art school when we met, and she was going down to Brooklyn, so I said, "I'm coming too." And so I left Utica, and we were down there for almost 3 years, and then we went down to Houston afterward. We were there for about 2 years. So some of these poems sort of loosely track this journey. So this one's set down there. It's called The Exile. Katy, Texas. In the old train depot this morning, covered with sweat, I stood reading graffiti drawn by hobos 100 years ago. I can't decipher their patois scrawled across the walls, but a woman explains that a certain mark meant "stay out," a warning left for others passing through on the MKT. They don't like strangers in Katy. I am a stranger here and never can figure out my way around. I'm used to old village streets in upstate New York that follow a canal or point like a broken compass at one hill they mistake for north. Now, in a letter you ask, "When are you coming home?" That word fills my mouth with the taste of rust, as though I bit my tongue. And after the shock of it, I think, what code word is more difficult than home? In this cul-de-sac, the houses lie among their trees like packages sent from someplace far away. I want to tear them open, see what's inside. A maquette of family life, small labels by everyone's feet, like stage directions in a play. A bomb. A few lights come on. The Texas heat abates. Across the drainage canal, men stop working. The red earth is piled beside their yellow backhoes like termite castles. More houses. More sheetrock and glass. Floors leveled. ready for tile. The prairie holds its breath beneath concrete. Yellow pine studs rise, a new kind of corn. I want to run to where the men are standing, take one of them by the arm, and ask, who will live in these rooms? If you were here, you would tell me, I've been reading too many poets obsessed with exile. One complains of cold on the Black Sea coast. Another writes to friends about spring moonlight he remembers from years ago, before the wars. His notes find me instead. Lorca has marched into a street to die, and I feel bullet grease on my fingers. A spear thane, drifting in his boat, says, the worried ones cannot withstand fate. A man must hoard his feelings in his chest. Migraine of the heart. Why feel so far from home? I am not Naomi. The woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. Tonight I have a safe room with a bed. A woman is cooking a meal for us in her kitchen. But there are other women cooking for their children with rainwater in the garbage dumps of Tijuana. It's a fact that a boy died this morning of dysentery. It's a fact that daily 2,000 children die from diarrhea. What they call home, I would call at best a shelter. The poets are selfish, but they try to understand. They look at fields full of gables and wonder what animal has been digging in the earth, and whether or not those still tortoises will one day move, returning to sea. They're honest about our chances, that if we stick our toes in the dirt, our feet will not sprout roots, and our arms will not grow canopies. They keep telling us about home, because we keep looking for a new one every day. Thank you. Going through my book, and I'm like, geez, I got to find something light after that. What the hell am I going to read? And these are gloomy. Yeah, after that one, I want to read. Where's my convenient bookmark? Oh, here it is. This is a short one. And this one is probably one of Ruth's all-time favorite poems, and I can't take credit for the last line because it was actually Colleen's father, Mike. I worked with him for a while we were down there. He's an amazing carpenter, so this poem's sort of dedicated to him. But it starts with a quote from one of my favorite poets, Wallace Stevens, and he says, "We do not want to be metaphysicians." Yeah, right. So this poem's called Afterlife. The old table, its top trying to smile off from its base, has tiger-striped grain, a golden sea sand pattern, with rings where someone set a glass of wine or spilled cups of Moroccan coffee. And I wonder what Mike would think of this piece of maple if he saw it shining in the October sun. A skilled carpenter, he could refinish it. But the table cannot hold one shape. Its legs twist and send roots under the rug. Little hairline twigs push open the drawer. He said, wood never forgets what it was. A board always wants to be a tree again. This one is called Vox Vocus, which is just Latin for voice. The air hoards voices and so many sounds, distant sirens, the neighbors' children chattering along with starlings and chickadees, old men outside bodegas, gawking, gossiping. Underneath these, the paper-like crumpling of dry leaves, as though the air was writing everything down, compulsively taking notes. What did he say? Something about voices, something about birds. The air ought to ripple when we speak, the way a pond does when it rains. Water becomes sawtoothed, jagged. Just so, the air is sharpened by a human voice. To think there are deserts of silence, like the moon, that fishhook dangling from a tree, there and craters that never once ricocheted echoes off their stones, we would die. We couldn't bear it. There could be no more inhuman place. Imagine yourself without a voice, unable to say one word, unable to lean over to someone you love and whisper in her ear. Not here. Here we are always talking, almost too much, until the sky seems like a jar of voices knocked over on the floor. I'm on my hands and knees trying to sort them, trying to trace one back to you. But why this noise? Why do we feel incomplete until someone hears us? Because part of each of us remains children and cannot live if we go unnoticed? That is our first act, the cry, the only thing we can do to call the ones who know us. Come from the other room. Then who are we crying out for when we sing? Here I am. This voice is mine. No one else can use it. Yours sounds sure and confident. Our conversation continues. Our only fear, the thought we might be stifled and our voices left wilting, like cut flowers in the vase of our mouths. Thank you. Didn't take me a long time to get off track with it. I was joking with my friend Tom, who's going to read in a few minutes, but I really got off of my little bookmark, so I don't even know where I'm going next. But I think I'm just going to read one more from the book for now, and then I would like to share the mic tonight with my two friends, Ruth, who you've already heard from, but did such a beautiful job introducing me. I want her to read a poem. And I have my friend Tom here also. And unfortunately, my friend Orrin, who really, if it weren't for Orrin, I probably wouldn't be writing poetry. I thought I was going to be a novelist. I was wrong. He's not here tonight, so I'm going to read one of his poems, and I'm also going to read one from my friend Cindy Day. But I'm going to read this one, called Poem to the Mouse Living in My Attic. I am sick of the dialectic of hunter and prey, baiting traps with peanut butter, while you find secret passageways inside my cupboards. What are you doing in my attic now, Lady Mouse? The cat hears too. All day you go unnoticed, but at night awake I lie listening to your back and forth. On patrol, the cat jumps off the bed as I pull the blankets around me and imagine what it would be like to live a slandered life the way you do. Vermin, people say. No. Master of survival. You make your nest secure. Because of you, I love more the darkness in my room, the warmth of my wife pressed against me in her sleep. I pretend to be your size. Every sense converts to hearing through the synesthesia of fear. What is that? Wind plodding against my life, sharpening its blade of snow. 4 delicate feet, their gentleness unable to hide their claws. Silence becomes my house. I know each of its rooms. I live behind the wainscot of my thoughts. Still restless, I get up and trace your route above me, and find Cat looking out a window as though he heard you crawling somehow through the shingles into an attic above the moon. Okay. Over the past few years, I've been able to do a lot of work publishing books with Doubly Mad Books. It started years ago when the first book I put out was one of Tom's called Reading the Empty Page. But over the past few years, we haven't been doing as many, but I was able to do a book for my friend Cindy Day called Complicated Thanks. And Cindy's a remarkable poet. She's originally from, I think, Connecticut, if I remember correctly. And she lived many years here in central New York. Unfortunately, she isn't able to be here tonight. So I want to read one of these to commemorate her. She's always been such a big influence on me, and she supported my work. So this is a tribute for her. It's a beautiful poem called Of Late. I have asked time to stay, not stop, not end, just settle down. The red maple is on the verge of leafing out, knots and clusters of crimson on every branch. Buds, they must open like Bo, my grandson, his skin, his hair, his bone, breathe in the sun like the new leaf. I have asked time to stay an hour. Oh, what would a whole day be? And let me put my fingertip to Bo's smile, his open stare. Let me hold his clean new hand. I am the past, come to introduce him to the old names. Those who fell before us like the leaves will fall. I am old and know, here at the beginning, what the end looks like. And I ask time to let us all sit a while before the leafing out, the middle glory, the red strength, the chill October. And now I'd like to have my friend Tom come up and read a poem.
Well, I'd have to say that having been reading Will's work over the past, 7, 8 years, maybe something like that, it's a little surprising to me that this is his first book. I feel like he should have had about 5 by now, but maybe that's because he's been too busy helping other people get their books published. And I have to say that for myself anyway, I can't think of anyone to whom I owe more gratitude for literary matters in terms of my own work. Will's always sort of been there, lending an ear and pretending to understand what I'm doing, and has been a great supporter. Published several things by me, so thank you. And I'm thrilled to add Saffron to my poetry shelf. All right, so Will picked this poem. I'm not 100% sure why, but he told me I would be, so I'll pretend I am. This is called White Duck. The last man to ascribe narrative continuity to me died a horrible death. Of course, the two events were unrelated. 6 weeks after he said it, he got run over by a circus wagon. It was semi-tragic and very asexual. A panorama of yeast farms circumscribed my childhood, that and the shoe factory, which lent its faux leather smell to dreams and alleyways. Some of us carry it to this day. Do you remember the metal bridge that hummed when we drove across it, and the family of trolls who lived beneath? The father sold formica door to door, and the mother operated a projector at the Bijou. I can't remember the river's name. We spent summer nights burning chiffon. The scent of scrapple was overwhelming. I grew 6 shoe sizes. Our parents entertained guests with slideshows of construction sites, and when, as sometimes happened, the slide failed to drop into its slot in the projector, resulting in a blank screen, Father always said, "Here's a white duck eating marshmallows in a snowstorm." During Holy Week, we sometimes ate ring bologna sandwiches with ketchup. Mornings I woke to find love crawling on all fours, complaining of an irritable bowel. "Is that my hat?" I'd say. Mother crushed crickets beneath her high heels. You may not believe it, but some folks still grew their own pork chops. Florid-faced Germans in butcher aprons ran everything, or acted as if they did. We practiced being morose every day between 3 and 4. Then it was shirts versus skins for prison ball, followed by competitive tithe offerings refereed by Martin Luther himself. All of us thought alike because our town was surrounded on 3 sides by impassable mountains. On the southern border lay a swamp with motionless tea-colored water and octagonal lily pads. At the swamp's far end was a sun-drenched field where strange birds blossomed and, it was rumored, memories might be revised. The old-timers said that if one listened on a still afternoon, one could hear celestial music, but we never got close enough to verify it. Not that some of us didn't drown trying.
Tom and I and my friend Jim, who's here, have something called the Scotch Committee, where we sit around drinking, well, scotch and solving the world's problems, and we get to share poems and ideas. And when I first heard that one, I instantly loved it. Why? I don't know. It just hits those little buttons in the back of the brain, you know. So next I'd like to have Ruth come up and read one.
Will chose this one too. It's called On the Swing Set. Yesterday on the swing set, my granddaughter told me trees make the wind, then explained in intricate detail how that happens, what the branches did, and how everything worked together. It was like sitting before some ancient native elder, not a New World 3-year-old, but someone who knew, who could tell the story plain and true. During the last windstorm, my friend, the artist, wrote to say she was trying to paint the wind. And now I wonder if she knows about how the branches work. My granddaughter loves the wind, the way I used to love it. She trusts trees, doesn't need, as I do now, to fearfully eye an eerily swaying pine, cringe at crackling overhead limbs. She just swings, adding her own gust to the whirl, secure in her sure understanding of wind, that original, holiest of spirits, sifting blessings on those who can still believe. Thank you, Will, for inviting me.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, I was going to say, thank you for coming, Kim. I'm going to read a poem of Warren's now that he was going to read. So this is a tight-knit group of poets, and I think that this back and forth that we have together is really what motivates a lot of my own writing. They're my audience. It's great to send stuff out and have it published, if it gets published. But really, it's sharing it with Ruth and Warren and Tom, and that matters most to me. And Colleen, poor Colleen, she has to listen to so much of this stuff. And it's very hard to get one poem one time last year, she read the poem and she said, "This is a fantastic poem." And I wrote it down because it doesn't happen often. She'll say, "This is good." She'll say, "This is good." And I'm like, okay. So this poem that I'm going to read now in honor of Orrin is called Prayers, and I think it's very appropriate because I think of my poetry as being somewhat prayer-like, and that stems too from some of my favorite poets are that they create a tone that is meditative, and I can only call it prayer. They're not necessarily praying to a god, or are they? I'm not sure. But also, I came across a quote from a French philosopher whose work I don't know, but I like the quote. Nicolas Malebranche is his name. I'm probably mispronouncing it. Tori, you know French. You can tell me. And the quote roughly is that attention is the natural prayer of the soul. So that's the other thing about my poetry, that these poems are attempts to learn how to pay attention to what's going on. All of my work is like that. So here's Orrin's poem called Prayers. The prayers uttered when I was young, whether whispered, chanted, or sung, went straight to God's attentive ear, for I had not then learned to fear that no one heard my incantations. Like the spider who late last night wove his ephemeral web so tight between the arm and back of this plastic chair, I assumed the universe would care for all of its most fragile creations. But now, 6 harsh decades hence, and speaking in the present tense, I know that nothing's built to last, that both web and I will soon be cast into the tender abyss from whence we came. Having learned that to succeed, all my prayers must learn to bleed, I place this poem upon a paper altar where it will perish like all the rest. It's in their making that I am blessed. I'll go back to adding Saffron in a little bit, but I want to read some newer poems that will be in the second book, which I have no idea when it'll come out, maybe in 10 years. So this one is called Poem for Jane Kenyon. She's one of these poets that I'm talking about. And, my apologies to any dog people out there, but I am not a dog person. But sometimes I wish there was one in my life, a mutt part hound, maybe part retriever, who would go with me on walks along the village outskirts, up that road, past Scudder's house, up that hill and into the woods. There's a clearing near the summit, a plateau of gravel, where the town DOT dumps leaves and lawn debris every year. A favorite spot for the turkeys come early September, before hunting season opens. I've seen there flocks of 20 birds or more moving in and out of the valleys between hills of mulch. Good for them. No dog is here now, just this odd man looking for a more perfect way of being alone, who thinks a dog would help with that. A dog who has just a little bit of melancholy in his eyes, but enough slobber and smile to still seem happy. A dog who has every ounce of curiosity he was born with intact, married to an almost human intuition. My own has been telling me for weeks there is something wrong. Not wrong. It's like cutting into an onion and finding the green sprout has begun in its center. At work, one of the nurses told a story about how her friend had a Freudian slip. Instead of saying, "How's your brother?" she asked, "How's your baby?" A week later, the woman learned she was pregnant. As in all things, what I have is the imperfect, a partial solitude, a piecemeal sense of where I am. A view of 10 feet, at most, into the forest, framed by close-ups of New England asters and goldenrod. And, along with the turkeys, courage and a clear awareness that between staying out in the open where there may be food, taking cover in the woods where there isn't, and crossing back and forth like a shuttle through a loom, not many good alternatives are left. This one is called Fool's Oasis. And it's kind of good probably if you've been shopping after the thaw. You may have seen some of this in the grocery store parking lots. It happened again this morning in the grocery store parking lot. I stood watching the pigeons congregating, the torn-up scratch-offs gathering in flocks. Every time there's a storm, every March, once the snow thaws, I see the same thing. Utica is full of gamblers. I walk my fence line with garbage bags, gathering the pied blossoms. Take 5, taxes paid, mega multiplier, world-class cash. I grab them in handfuls, uncovering the green tips of crocuses, imagining a loaves and fishes miracle. $2 turned into a bank account with lots of zeros following a 1 like baby geese, single file behind their mother. And skeptic that I am, I cry out to the oldest god, Mama Luck, a little help, please. Send me an easy grand, or give me some spending money. Just $100 to cover the water bill. Give me my own Tahiti, and I will paint your picture every day. Somehow the pigeons seem content. They've given up waiting for their fortunes to change, waiting for people to remember they were once the sign of love and peace. Instead of horses, Aphrodite's chariot was pulled by doves. Yes, these promiscuous, docile gobblers of French fries. They coo and bob, peck at the soggy lotto tickets, not bothering to check if someone misread the numbers. When a wind picks up or cars startle them, they all take flight together. White wings flap in circles, gray slips of chance float away. A sort of Bedouin in search of water, wary of mirages, I stand with my trunk full of bread and carrots, wondering what they see from up there. If they are flying toward a fool's oasis, or if they know the secret, hidden caravansary of the lucky, and I should follow them. But if they know, why, I ask myself, do they always come back to this hard, ugly place, unless they like scrounging? How could they mistake it for paradise? Where's the other one? Where is it? Okay. I'll just read a couple more. This one's very short, and then I'm going to end with one from the book. This one is called Comb. I'm useless here in this city, all day watching yellow and red leaves fall. October sunshine, scalpel sharp, cutting our world into shadows and cameos. I pick up a leaf, expecting to find written along its veins a few lines by Sappho, or one of Emily's poems about death. Another misapprehension. My wife is raking. Today, nothing seems stranger than the body, the pelvis like elk antlers, the knees like bruised apples. What holds us together? A few simple knots. Time runs through us like a comb through a woman's long hair. This one is not written today. Whenever Tom gives a reading, he always tries to read one that he's written that day. I didn't have time to write today, but this was written a couple weeks ago. This one is called Interrogative. Where do flies come from on the first warm day when only half of the snow has thawed? How far down does meltwater go as it soaks into the earth? A child might ask these questions, yes, but they are full of wonder that even an old man would feel in spring, walking his lame dog near the river, watching a hawk mobbed by crows, ask, is courage ultimately a side effect of hunger? Does power only amount to a combination of discernment and opportunity? Why have you always been so uneasy, William? He who spends his life asking questions may eventually obtain wisdom. That is what the man approaching middle age tells himself when he reaches Gethsemane. Tell me the distinction between knowledge and reassurance. Life is a little too much like crossing ice. Where you stepped an hour ago may no longer be a safe place to stand. Is that what the man walking his dog would say? Would he suggest that wisdom is a matter of skipping stones over water and managing somehow to walk across the water on those stones before they get away from you? There's a question I don't think you have ever asked before. If love is an experience common to all of us, why does it seem to have so little influence? Would you be satisfied if you ever had an answer to all of those questions you've posed since you were a boy? The hawk, incidentally, can fly higher than the crows, but it seems there is always one crow when the others have settled back on their perches, one that pursues the hawk alone, moonward. Let's check the time. Thank you. I guess we'll turn back to the book now. So yeah, in 2 years, 5 years, 15 years, sometime when I'm dead, who knows, somebody will come along and find my papers and say, hey, maybe that was good. It'll be out there one day. But now, here's this wonderful book, and I want to, again, thank a few people. I want to thank, first of all, Orrin and Ruth and Tom for always reading these poems. And I want to thank, again, the press for putting this on. And yes, Andrew, I wanted to thank you too, but Ruth did such a great job. How can I possibly? And I, of course, I want to thank my parents. They've always been supportive of me. My father, he read all those early short stories and attempts at novels, and he lived to tell the tale, I guess, or not. But I really want to thank Colleen because she's always been there, and she listens to me ramble on. As you can tell, I have that tendency. So thank you to everybody, and thank you again to everyone who came out tonight. It's been a real pleasure to read these poems to an audience. Usually when you're sitting, I'm on the couch, in the morning, with the coffee and the cat, and you don't know where these poems are going to end up, or if you're going to be standing full of a room full of people reading them. So it's definitely fun to be up here. So I'm going to read Adding Saffron, the title poem. And this is Poetry Month, too. I should have, but, maybe I should have read this in March, because it's not March, but it's almost March. It's only April 3rd. March brings its rain and stubborn questions. The red-winged blackbirds return. I walk through the half-thawing marsh, listening to that familiar okalee call. Every time the blackbird sings, he shrugs his shoulders. I don't know either, I tell him. Sometimes I think the soul is two-toned, like an old board. The half that's been baked by sunlight is dark brown, the color of cinnamon or burnt toast, while the other half that was covered with a stone or sheet of plywood is light yellow, as though the tree has just been cut. Then Blackbird interrupts. Isn't this a little extravagant? Adding the soul to every problem, isn't it excessive? Like including saffron threads in a dessert? Oh, yes, I answer, excessive, unnecessary even, if it does impart that pretty yellow you can't manage with other dyes. and subtle flavor, easy to miss, like the soul, when you consider all of the ingredients for life, many of which are strong flavored, like garlic or molasses. But aren't we getting our metaphors mixed up a little? We don't eat number 2 pine. We aren't beavers. Shouldn't we choose, is the soul a spice or an element of architecture? Things should be squared and orderly. Blackbird has no response for this. He shrugs and flashes that red stripe as though it answers every question. Some presence in a clump of cattails summons him away. I ought to keep myself focused on what's necessary, on how to solve the problem asked by the doctor's scalpel when it cut my mother's womb open and left that funny smile on her belly that I always think of when I see an old tree in the woods, scarred by a line of barbed wire its bark grew to include. The fence is gone, but little tines of steel show through. I've been living ever since with an impression that whatever rules I was supposed to live by are already broken. But I never can make up my mind. I go back and forth from an extreme of darkness to an extreme of light. Maybe I lack a counter brace. Maybe the ground isn't level. But I always end up adding saffron, blaming the soul because it is sweet on my tongue and bitter in my stomach, because it won't let me be one thing, light or dark, excessive or shy. It makes me try for both. Thank you. You're going to have to help us drink all the wine, too. I appreciate it. So.
Those books are for sale.
Oh, yeah, we have books in the back if you don't already have one. And I don't know, yeah, we're probably going to hang out for a while, so anyone who wants to hang with me can hang, and we can, talk poetry or drink wine or go across the street, or let's not wander into the road and get hit, let's not do that. But so, thank you again for coming, everybody.